Parker. I'm American and I graduated from the program in 2021. The program was the right choice for me because it was first international. I'm American. I came from an international context in Boston, but what I lacked was these interactions daily with multiple different cultures. And this program not only specified that, but as well emphasized it throughout the curriculum. I loved the hands-on approach. The courses were very much designed to have case studies where we actively worked. And not only were we actively working on the case studies for a problem, but for a company. It wasn't just like, oh, we're thinking about something where how are we working for this company? So for example, Saffron had wanted us to think of something disruptive with a class from Thomas Gauthier. And it was actually quite exciting to think that my solution, what I'm doing, is going to potentially impact their business and impact their strategy. So for me, not only did it put me in the mindset of I'm not in a classroom, I'm in the real world, but it also then influenced the future of how I considered projects. So a case study when I entered into my next role wasn't just like, oh, this is an idea. No, this is like, how am I physically impacting something today? So we worked with Saffron, which was more about thinking about innovation, and that was the class with Thomas Gauthier. Then we also worked on a case study with Accor. And that was a group study on where we really needed to understand, try to think of new business models for them, and specifically with like which geography they should focus on and what type of hotel they should possibly consider creating in the future. We also did some fun projects, like I had a good reflection with the class of Caroline Ruiz, and that was marketing. And I thought, oh, I'm going to hate marketing. Like, that's not going to be something interesting to me. But we were considering how marketing impacted the new EU sustainable goals. And that kind of transformed everything for my perspective of what marketing really is meant to do. Also, the course with Rhoda Davidson on strategy was really interesting. That was specifically focused with I could say like my memoir for my studies there. That was with a startup in the biotech and the medtech space. But again, it was like very nice to think, okay, Eurocam is the company. They're coming to us with a problem. How are we then guiding them to find a solution? There wasn't a class that wasn't hands-on. There wasn't a moment at Lyon that we weren't trying to apply directly what we learned to solve a problem for a company real time. They really had a close relationship with their network and with the French ecosystem that was saying like, we're coming to you because we have a problem and we know that you guys have the team and the students there that can help solve it. Another course in strategy, and unfortunately I get the professor's name, but it was doing classic SWOT, like, okay, what are the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities and threats for automation in the car industry? And my brain was so fixated on like, this is the only way you can do it. But this professor, he just kept pushing, said, no, like, think of something different, think beyond Tesla, think beyond the classic Honda or Renault, like what can you provide new? And that's the strategy. And I really had to like step back and think from this in a different perspective than my typical stubborn self that just thinks that there's A and B and then there's C. He really challenged me to think of everything else that could occur. I'm the oldest of four, and I only have brothers. So I kind of always have this personality that's like, hey, take lead, let's go. And there was a lot of small problems that would come to me. And I'd be like, oh, let's try to find a solution. I think in life, we're not meant to always solve other people's problems. What we're meant is to listen, reflect, and provide them small guidance in order for them to like come to a solution or to maybe overcome an obstacle. And I think my key learning personally is that one, it's great to take on leadership, but as well, when you're a leader, you need to be able to work more as an intermediary and listen very clearly to either your colleague or to the school itself, and find, okay, well, maybe they're just not understanding each other, and helping kind of create communication rather than play mom and solve a problem. I really liked the extracurriculars I did. We were during COVID, so we have to put that in mindset that there was confinements, there was curfews, etc. But I was part of the challenge club, and this allowed me to actually have a place where I could take a risk. Because within our courses, you could take a risk, but at the end of the day, you need to keep in mind this was a real problem that a client was coming to you. Within the clubs, you could say, okay, I'm taking a challenge, I'm thinking outside the box, and the risk is a little bit lower because at the end, it's just for you to gain money or gain a prize. And they're there for also providing this like hand-on training that can provide you more of a scope of, okay, what's beyond the doors? What's the next step? And in general, they also pushed you in terms of time management. They pushed you in terms of collective working and beyond. Okay, Lyon is in France, but these were challenges like international. So it exposed you to many different types of people. Challenge Club is where you are participating in kind of MBA challenges. So schools or organizations would say, okay, you have 40 hours and I want you to design the next app for this problem. So those were really like, okay, you have short time, you have short deadlines. And our club was really focused on just trying to answer to those challenges, building teams, and participating together. Sports Club was about organizing sports events and organizing as well sports in the mindset that they create teams and how do you build teams. So the goal of Sports Club is that at the end of the day, you know how to work well with others within the framework of sports. For me, it's not just about like staying fit. It's about how do you communicate with your teammates so you win. And then Consulting Club was more about like, okay, how do you build a strategy? How do you answer a client's need in terms of, okay, a question of finance? How are you doing a market analysis, etc.? And that one was doing case studies as well. So doing classic McKinsey case studies or Bain, etc. So my career right after was in consulting. So it was actually quite perfectly. I went from these classes that were somewhat, sometimes generalist, but sometimes very specific, like finance, etc., strategy, to then directly with the clubs as well, to consulting and saying, okay, a client's coming with a specific problem. How are we building a methodology? What are the questions we're asking? Who is the end user? What is the value proposition, etc. So it was really streamlined and it was a nice entry point and something I highly recommend for anyone who's looking at even Lyon, but as well others who might consider doing an MBA. Communication with multinational audiences and managing stakeholders. I think the biggest key thing is in entrepreneurship, in consulting, in whichever type of job you're doing, you are going to have language barriers, cultural barriers, education barriers, even experiences, or just personality too. And you need to be able to say, okay, that person really wants that, this person wants this, and how do I make sure that they all understand each other? And that was really emphasized within the curriculum over and over again. And I'm very thankful for that today in my career. They open the door to, okay, this is step A, B, C, which is extremely practical on the world of like just staying here. The second thing is they prepare you for what is the culture of life? What is it working life in France? For example, lunch sounds so minor, but for being an American, lunch was not in my mind as such an important value in France. Actually, it's where you can get a lot of traction within your team. So, for example, then emphasizing like what is the French culture? Like how do you yourself integrate into a French company? As small little things like that were important. They also provided the door to their network. Important thing is that when you're coming um, from another country, and I didn't speak French before I arrived in France, I spoke zero words. I understood nothing, but I learned and they provided classes, and I as well put a lot of effort into that. But that was also ways where they opened their network with events so that I could really make the transition. The career office is very good. They provided a webinar and hands-on support. So if you needed, say, like more comprehension of how to do your resident application, they were there. They as well also provided help for opening bank accounts. It's a small thing, but it's kind of complicated in France, and I'm thankful to have their aid. And there was the resume review. So you sent their resume and then they would provide feedback on how to better word it or frame it. Believe it or not, for me, I actually didn't realize that you put a photo on a resume in France. I was quite shocked to that. So little things like that are really helpful for coming to France and working in France. Don't hesitate to get involved in clubs. Don't hesitate to take risks. And also, just because maybe you're not a natural French speaker or you're not familiar with the French culture, it's not going to, it shouldn't be a barrier for your experience at Lyon. It shouldn't be what prevents you from following your career and going to that into whatever it is you imagine. I would also just give a very practical piece of advice. Do not stay within the emlyon world and walls. Get involved with Lyon, the community. Try to go to events within the city because that's as well part of the network. Part of it is seeing what's outside and making sure that you yourself really understand you.